Hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Uranium Market Minute. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, and this is episode number 135. My name is Justin Huhn. I am your host. I'm the founder and publisher of the Uranium Insider Pro Newsletter, the only investing newsletter that focuses solely on uranium and publishes on a regular monthly basis. As always, nothing that you see or hear in this podcast is intended to be investing advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please always do your own due diligence when it comes to investing, and always take responsibility for your own choices. All right, doctor, we have a pulse. Finally, we see some movement in the market with a bit of volume here. Nice breakout for a number of stocks across the space. In the mailbag section, I'm going to discuss why these stocks were moving. And we're going to be sending out a detailed bulletin of our interpretation of this news to Uranium Insider Pro members. You will be receiving that tomorrow morning before the market opens, as we do our best to interpret this news to the best of our abilities with the information that we have currently. Either way, the market did like the news that came out. I'm going to talk about that in the mailbag section. I look forward to showing you the charts and doing a bit of brief technical analysis there. But prior to that, why don't we go ahead and jump into the daily scoreboard here. Spot price of uranium sitting at 51.13 a pound mid-market, up today on some purchasing by SPUT. SPUT did in fact purchase just shy of 400,000 pounds today. Now I'm recording this late. I'm recording this at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I do have the SPUT data that came in. They raised close to $30 million today and did buy a bit of uranium. Now we've seen a $5, $6 move in the spot price over the past couple of weeks, and that's with very little purchasing on behalf of SPUT. However, as I've mentioned in the past, a lot of times what happens is you'll actually see the trust move up, the price of the stock move up, and you'll see traders trade around that, and or sellers raising their ask to fall in line with the NAV of SPUT. So oftentimes the tail wags the dog, but in this case, the dog was wagging the tail today with SPUT actually purchasing uranium in the spot market. So it's been a while, and this is the biggest purchase they've made in, gosh, it's probably pushing 2 months here. So in the day before, that was yesterday, they raised another 2.3 million with 183,000 new units issued. They closed at a slight discount to NAV, but they traded up nicely today on the volumes that came into the sector. So that was great to see. The total NAV of SPUT now sits at right around $3 billion. Looking at the sector equity ETFs, yesterday URA reported 260,000 share redemptions, which honestly I'm kind of surprised to see, because we've seen such low volume days in the sector over the past couple of weeks. Very surprised to see those redemptions, but either way, it was just under 2 million in mandated selling. Really doesn't really move the needle that much. All right, why don't we jump in and take a look at the charts here. Okay, URA, solid day, up almost 6% on very nice volume. Like I said, the sector really broke out today on very respectable volume across the board. The biggest winners were some of the US plays, because the news had to do specifically with United States uranium. And I'm going to cover that in just a minute. But either way, across the board, nice volume coming into URA. Nice volume. Let's check out URNM. Also a really big up day, up 7% on the day on very reasonable volume here. So nothing to shake a stick at here in terms of volume. Very happy to see this. Cameco also had an excellent day. Did not close at the highs, which would have been nice to see, but up 8% on the day on very, very big volume. In fact, this is one of the top volume traded days ever for this stock, maybe the 4th or 5th highest volume day for the stock. I don't cover this stock often, but it's worth noting it. Uranium Energy Corporation, record daily volume today, up 15%. And UEC obviously is a company that focuses on production in the United States. Let's look at the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust here. Again, up quite nicely here, 3.5% on the day. It was trading up well, almost pushing $17 on the Canadian side here. And volume, again, not huge volume, but at least it's improved over the past couple of weeks with a nice breakout on the daily chart. All right, so what happened today? What is the news that moved the sector? It's actually really funny. I recorded this podcast earlier in the day. Typically, I do it right after the market closed. Today, I had a prior engagement in the middle of the day. So I recorded it about 11:30 a.m. my time, Pacific time. And in that first recording, I said, well, typically I do this after the market closes. Now that I'm doing it before the market closed, as soon as I stop recording, some news is going to come in. I literally said that in the recording of the podcast. And sure enough, as soon as I hit the end button on the recording, news came in that the United States is seeking $4.3 billion in funding to buy enriched uranium from domestic sources. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a history lesson here for those who are new to this investment thesis and what has led up to this moment for the United States. I mean, not just the present conflict that's happening in the Ukraine and the United States wanting to cut off Russian enrichment and Russian conversion, but they just can't do it because we have of the largest nuclear fleet in the world that provides 20% of the grid almost. And a lot of that uranium comes from Russia. And so the United States has not been able to cut them off because it's a vital element for the actual grid functioning. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. Section 232. Now, Section 232 came about in 2018. This was put out by Energy Fuels and UR Energy. They both filed this petition. This is a petition with the United States government, and they requested in this petition for the government to implement quotas on the United States nuclear utilities, that U.S. utilities would have to buy 20% of their annual demand, let's say, in uranium equivalent from United States sources. So 20% of the U3O8 that the U.S. utilities would have to contract would have to come from domestic mines. And so that was the proposal. It was stewed over by the government for a very long period of time. The market was expecting some sort of reaction to this, and they were expecting it to follow through. And what happened? Nothing happened. It basically got deferred. And President Trump at the time, what he did was he took that petition and he said, okay, I'm not going to rule on this. I'm not going to do quotas, but what I am going to do is recognize that this is a problem. And I'm going to implement something called the Nuclear Fuel Working Group. Now, the working group had, I believe at the time, 90 days, if I recall correctly, to assess the situation and come up with a plan. Now, that 90 days ended up stretching out for many, many months. They did come up with a plan, and part of that plan was for the United States to have a strategic uranium reserve and buy X amount of pounds from domestic producers to support the miners, in addition to some funding to support, I believe it was the restart of ConverDyn, as well as expanding enrichment capacity, et cetera, et cetera. All of this was in 2020, and that's when COVID hit, and it was an election year. So I think the president had some bigger fish to fry at the time. So it just really fell on the back burner and nothing happened. So now bring us to the present day, where we have this conflict with Russia invading Ukraine and the United States and much of the West wanting to not do business with Russia any longer, to the extent that they're able to cut off Russia as an important resource to the world for commodities. So this has just highlighted the United States' dependency on Russia in terms of uranium enrichment. So this news coming out today is quite interesting. Seeking $4.3 billion to buy enriched uranium from domestic sources. So that would still have to be approved by Congress. And to give you an idea of enrichment capacity, so last year in 2021, U.S. utilities contracted for 14 million SWU. A SWU is separative work unit. It's the measurement or the cost of enrichment, okay? And so 14 million SWU is what was purchased last year by U.S. utilities. And currently in the United States, there's one remaining enrichment facility, that is the Urenco facility in New Mexico, and it has an annual capacity of 4,700 SWU. So it's about 1/3 of the annual needs of the United States nuclear fleet in terms of enrichment. So what I believe this means essentially is we're going to see further government support of the entire fuel cycle for the United States. I don't know if that means that the uranium the U3O8 at the beginning of that fuel cycle must come from the United States. We don't yet have those details, but like I said, I'm going to give a much more thorough interpretation of this and what it means on the investing side for Uranium Insider Pro members. If you are not a member and you're interested, two things you can do. One, you can click the link in the description below and you'll get a free sample of a previous month's newsletter. You can get an idea of the type of content we put out. Two, if you'd like to try us on for 3 months, we do have a quarterly option. If you click the other link in the description below, that'll take you to the page on our website where you have the option to sign up for 3 months, during which time you can upgrade for a discounted rate to the annual if you do like our service. And most people that sign up for the quarterlies do end up upgrading to the annual. I look forward to giving that deeper interpretation of this. Either way, very nice to see some blood come to the extremities here and finally see a pulse in the sector, see some volume come into these stocks. This setup is unbelievable. It's unbelievable for uranium. And the fact that we have this underpinned by a jittery broad market just makes it all the more exciting, right? Because we don't just have everything is well and good and the S&P is up 0.5 to 1% day over day over day over day, like we did, leading up to the 2020 election. And then we saw just the crazy melt up in 2020 after the crash in March. But the markets are not all great right now. And the fact that we have this set up with that as a backdrop is super, super exciting. We obviously can see the beginnings of a significant outperformance of the broad market by the uranium equities. I actually didn't show you that chart, but that's okay. It's pretty obvious. I'll show you tomorrow. So I hope you all had a great day, and finally nice to see some great returns. I mean, uranium can move a respectable return for a year in a day, and you can have portfolio gains of 5 to 10% on the day. You can have portfolio losses of 5 to 10% on the day on these big downdrafts, which we saw in late April and into early May. But when it moves in whatever direction, it moves with a vengeance. And let's see if we see some follow through for the rest of the week on this news. But this is very good news so far. And like I said, that needs to be confirmed and voted on by the US Congress. We'll see if that passes. This does seem to be a bipartisan issue. I believe it's likely that it will pass. But how long it takes until those purchases actually happen, I don't know. Either way, this is just what this catalyst means for the sector is less important than it is to recognize that a catalyst moved the sector in the way that it did today. There seemingly was a lot of money on the sidelines just waiting for someone else to jump first. And that's what happens. You wash out all of the weak hands so thoroughly with a brutal pullback late April, early May. Then all you have left are the people that are hodling, and you have the diamond hands, and you have the contrarians that are actually buying that dip like myself. Then we have news like this come in when the market is fragile and waiting for an excuse to move up. And that excuse came today. So nice to see some follow through in the rest of the week. We'll be looking out for that. Okay, I hope you're well. I hope you have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.